The bassoon, a rich sound, an expressive soul. Such a unique instrument in terms of everything that it adds to an ensemble and everything that it can do. And today, Samuel Banks, bassoonist with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, is going to be teaching you everything you need to know to start your bassoon journey off on the right foot. How to put it together, how to hold it properly, so important. How to breathe, how to take care of the reed and place the reed, how to make your first sound. All of these things. So I encourage you, at any point during the video to stop, to pause the video, to make sure that you're mastering everything that Samuel's teaching you about the bassoon. And at the end, if you have questions, you can ask us at schoolconcerts@tso.ca. Schoolconcerts@tso.ca, and we will do our best to get back to you. So now, along with hundreds of other students all over Ontario, it's time for your first bassoon lesson. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Samuel Banks. Since 2009, I've been a bassoonist with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. I am so happy that you're joining me to learn about this fascinating instrument. Ever since I was a student, I've been drawn to the deep and expressive sound of the bassoon. While there certainly are some challenges to learning this instrument, I am here to offer you help in getting started. Let's get on our way. I started studying the bassoon in 7th grade in California. Mr. Jaggard, my middle school band director, was very eager to have a bassoonist in his band. He could tell that I was less than inspired to play the clarinet. On the day that I was scheduled to take the bassoon home for the first time, he and I stood next to each other, looking over the open case of the instrument, seeing all the disassembled parts, and neither of us were really sure how to put them together reliably. He turned to me and he said quite simply, "I think it would be great if you got a private lesson from a bassoonist." Now, those lessons have paid off for me over the course of my career, but they paid off immediately in that I figured out how to put together the bassoon. The bassoon is, after all, one of the more complicated orchestral instruments. When you look at the open bassoon case, you will see 4 main parts. They are the boot joint, the wing joint, the long joint, and the bell joint. Something that I've figured out over time is that it takes just about the same amount of time to assemble the bassoon as it does to soak a bassoon reed in warm water. So now would be a great time to drop your reed into some water to help it soak up for making music. Okay, we'll come back to that in a little while. So, assembling the instrument. We will start with the boot joint. You will notice that at the top of the boot joint, there are 2 holes, also called sockets. One of these is larger than the other. With the smaller socket, we are going to insert the wing joint. That is our first step. So, the wing joint, I swivel carefully the tenon of the wing joint into the smaller socket of the boot joint. A few things to be cautious of. Don't squeeze too hard on these rods, otherwise you'll bend them and the bassoon will kind of be a mess. It'll fall out of adjustment and be relatively unplayable. So grip it, but don't squeeze too hard. Also, be sure that the lever of the wing joint rests atop the lever right here of the boot joint. That's a really important thing for assembly. That'll help it work properly. And also make sure that the contour of the inside curve of the wing joint is parallel to the curve of the larger boot joint hole. These will also ensure that your bassoon works properly. Okay, great. Nice job. Next, let's go to the long joint. You'll notice that one end of the long joint is more narrow than the other. We're going to take the narrow end of the long joint and insert it in the other socket of the boot joint. I press down vertically using a little bit of extra pressure. Sometimes I stand up and just use a little bit of body weight to push it down all the way. Something that I should mention, when we're assembling the bassoon, push in all of the joints all the way. That's the way the bassoon is designed to work best. With the long joint, I swivel it and I make sure that the keys of the long joint are as close to the keys of the wing joint without actually touching them. So that makes it easier for us to get around using our thumb on the bassoon. Great job. I bet you can guess what's next. That's right, next is the bell joint, which I also just press down vertically using a little bit of body weight. Make sure with this step, make sure that the levers are lined up once again. These levers will allow you to play a beautiful low B flat, the lowest note on the bassoon, one of the most satisfying notes to really open up on. Great. We're almost all the way there. The next step is that we're going to attach the handrest. Keep in mind, not every bassoon comes with a handrest. It's an option. Some handrests have a receiver and you just screw in a threaded... This isn't going very well, actually. Okay, I got it to finally, after like 3 tries, I got it to finally screw in. So some handrests screw in like that, like mine. Others have a separate screw that you screw in and tighten. Lots of bassoons, lots of different ways to have handrests. Okay, next up is the bocal. With the bocal, I grab it firmly, but not too hard here. Please do not bend your bocal. These are very malleable. They're very easily bent. So pay a lot of extra care with your bocal. So with this, I carefully swivel it in to the receiver at the top of the wing joint. All right, again, I do it all the way. Okay, almost all the way there. Remember that reed that we started soaking a few minutes ago? Time to bring that back. I swallow some of the extra water that's on it, and with this, once again, I swivel it on all the way to the bocal. Congratulations, you have a full bassoon, and we can move on to the next steps of making our first sounds on the bassoon. I'm looking forward to it. Holding the bassoon is not the most complicated part of playing. However, a few angles need to be addressed just to avoid strain, overexertion, and possible injury down the line, and also to help you play as comfortably as possible. When you're as comfortable as possible, playing the bassoon is a lot more fun. At this point, I would really recommend that a lot of the work that you do on the bassoon be in front of a mirror. Seeing yourself is as valuable as all of my words on these videos put together, and you can really start to teach yourself if you can see what you're doing in the mirror. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the height and angle of the bassoon as you hold it and as the bocal and reed come into your mouth. So we're going to use a seat strap. I'm sitting on a seat strap. Attach the bassoon to the seat strap using the hook, and now we're going to adjust it. As you can see, this bassoon is the perfect height if I were playing from my neck. So I'm gonna have to pull up on the loose end of the seat strap to get it to the right height. And now I would like it to just come straight into my mouth. What I always say is have the bassoon come to you. Don't you go to the bassoon. This is about right for me. I'm sitting with a very upright posture, and my neck is pretty much upright, and the reed just comes to my lips, which is great. The thing that I really would love for you to avoid doing is craning your neck forward, like really like this. A lot of angles on the bassoon say if the bassoon were too forward or too low, it forces you to not have an upright neck, to have a forward angle with your neck. And that leads to a lot of discomfort. I think it would lead to strain in the long term, and it doesn't allow you to create your most wonderful sound on the bassoon. Also, on top of that, it's just very uncomfortable to play with your neck forward like that all of the time. Similarly, to allow you to play with a fully upright neck and head, it's important to look at the angle of your reed on the vocal. If the angle of your reed is twisted a little bit too much to the side, it'll force your head to the side a little bit. And if you do it the other direction, it forces your head to the other side. Neither are ideal for playing the bassoon. Have a flat angle to your reed so it just comes straight to your mouth. I mean, again, use the mirror. So if you can be as upright as possible, the bassoon will be so much more fun and so much more comfortable for you as you play. The final thing I wanted to talk about were fingers. When I started the bassoon, I think I gripped the bassoon really strongly with my fingers. When we play the bassoon, we don't want to be too tight with our fingers. At the same time, we don't want to be too loose. So I would say experiment with the lightest possible grip that still covers all of the holes and allows you to depress all of the keys that are necessary. So not too tight. If you're too tight, it's going to make it really hard for you to lift your fingers and move from one note to the next. As you move from one note to the next, I think the other really important thing to keep in mind is not to lift your fingers too high. I think to lift your fingers the minimum amount possible creates the best efficiency on the bassoon. I wouldn't watch this finger here. This is really all you need to lift it. If you can lift it this high and control it this high, you will be so much more fluid on the bassoon, and speedy passages will come so much more easily. If you lift your finger twice as high, it's going to take twice as long for you to move from one note to the next. It's also going to take twice as much effort for you to move from one note to the next. So I would really advocate lifting your fingers the shortest distance possible that the instrument will allow. So to review, I think you can do this too. I love that we're starting early on and you're building a set of really good practices. So have the bassoon come to you, the right height and the right angle, moving the seat strap forward and lifting the instrument higher. Also, number 2, pay attention to the angle of the reed on the vocal, and number 3, your fingers not too tight on the instrument and don't lift them too high. I think if you do all 3 of these things, you'll be in really great shape for starting to play the bassoon. Great. The vibration of the reed is the source of our sound on the bassoon. In creating my sound, I focus on 3 muscle areas to help me do my best. The first, the respiratory system, my breath, helps me sustain the vibration on the reed and keep the sound going on the bassoon. I try to take the deepest, fullest possible breaths without lifting my shoulders. I would recommend using a mirror to see how you're progressing with this. My lips and the muscles around my lips form my embouchure, which helps support the reed. The formation of the lips when you whistle is almost identical to the embouchure on a bassoon reed. Try whistling a couple times at home, and then add your bassoon reed. I'll take a minute. Please try. Great, thank you. Please pay attention that you use the muscles in the corners of your mouth. They are so valuable in supporting the bassoon reed. The tongue is another important component of all of this. It's really important when you're starting a note to start with the tongue on the bottom tip of the reed and then to release it, allowing the breath to start the vibration of the reed. I know from experience myself that it's really tempting to start with the tongue away from the reed and then to sort of flick it to start the note. However, I've found that doing that, keeping it at a distance and flicking it, can lead to messy and out of tune beginnings to notes. Be sure to support the breath and have the embouchure set prior to releasing the tongue. That leads to the best beginnings of notes, and it's so much easier to have that set up from the very beginning as you're starting the bassoon. By now, you must realize that much of the work we do as bassoonists is inside our mouths, out of view. This is one of the real challenges of playing the bassoon. I have given you some of my keys to making a beautiful sound, but most of the discovery is still ahead of you. The bassoon is an instrument that rewards lifelong learners. There are always small adjustments to be made. It is rarely easy, but it is always worth the challenge. I find that music for beginning bassoonists isn't always the most exciting stuff. May I suggest that in addition to your early bassoon music, you make a point to play along with your favorite music, be it orchestra, pop, hip-hop, anything. This will build your ears and also your skills on the bassoon. Make it fun. I did this when I was younger, and I think it really paid off. In addition, there is a wealth of amazing music for bassoon that you can hear as well. I would like to leave you with music that inspired me from a young age, The Sorcerer's Apprentice by Paul Dukas. Thank you for joining me on Sound Advice. I look forward to hearing you play bassoon in the future. Good luck.